Okay, good evening. It is January 21st, 2026. This is the Finance Committee. Let's go ahead and start with a roll call, please.
Mr. Grumney,
Here.
Mr. Ghost,
Here.
Mrs. Crawford,
Here.
Mrs. Cooper,
Here.
Mr. Capel,
Here.
Mayor St. John,
Here.
and Mark Long is absent. 6 present. We have quorum.
Okay, thank you. And we have minutes from our December the 17th meeting. Looking for a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion.
All right, motion by Mr. Capel,
Second here.
second by Mr. Ghost. Discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Capel,
Yes.
Mr. Ghost,
Yes.
Mayor St. John,
Yes.
Mr. Grumney,
Yes.
Mrs. Cooper.
Yes.
Oh, whoops, I have that wrong. Mrs. Crawford.
Abstain.
5 yeas, motion approved.
Okay, all right, looks like we go into new and unfinished business and we begin with the 2025 financial updates.
Yes, thank you, Mr.
Yeah,
Grumney.
yeah, thank you.
Yes. On page 5 of your packet, I have included my financial update for 2025. As we are fresh off of the fiscal year end, we have some new numbers to look at and see how we ended up in 2025. So starting with our income tax revenues, we had estimated a 25% increase in our income tax over 2024. So we had an aggressive estimate there of $6 million. We almost hit that. We came slightly short of that at $5.8 million. But it's still a significant increase over our 2024 collections, which were just over $5 million. So we are trending upward and continue to trend upward. And there's a breakdown of the categories there. About 64% of our total income tax comes from employer withholding, followed by 27% from the individual income taxes and 9% from net profit earnings. So the largest source is, of course, the employer withholding taxes from individuals that are working in Sunbury. So that is the bulk lion's share of our income tax. And it is continuing to grow as well. We look at trends for those payments and receipts, and they're all also increasing at a very healthy rate. The table at the bottom, or the chart at the bottom, just shows the same information as the pie chart, just in a little different representation there. You can see how our income taxes are growing year over year. On page 5, I have that chart where you can see the actual dollar amounts for every tax category. Again, 5.8 million in 2025, up from 5.1 million in 2024, and that was up from 4.7 million in 23. So the withholding taxes, they've been increasing steadily since 2018, very, very healthy, and these trending upswings are, I attributed them to more employees working in Sunbury, businesses are growing, they're hiring more people, pay rates are going up, so all those things are helping to contribute to this. Individual income tax collections are also increasing steadily. In 2025, they were higher than those collected 3 years ago by 45.6%. I think that's a remarkable increase in 3 years. Again, that can be directly attributed to growing population and also increased efforts that we've done to seek out taxpayers who may not have known that they owed Sunbury tax. So the efforts that we're putting into that have been paying off. And finally, net profit from businesses represent about 12% of the total income tax revenue. Those increased by about 67% from 2024. There's a little bit of an outlier there, which I'm doing some research on and get some more information on that. And once I have some information, I'll provide. Moving on to property tax revenues, we've collected just over $725,000 in 2025, and that all went to the general fund. Now in the general fund, I have some breakdowns of categories of where we've received our money. So in the revenues in the general fund, we've received $8,790,000 in 2025. As you can see, the lion's share of that is income tax, followed by intergovernmental revenues at $842,000, and then property taxes and interest income follow those, with some fines and licenses and permits and miscellaneous revenues coming in as well. And the variances from those categories in 2025 compared to 2024, it's quite significant when you look at the intergovernmental revenues. And the reasoning for that is because in 2024, we did receive $1.25 million from the state of Ohio, and that's for the Ohio to Erie Trail project. That was received in 2024. And so that's why it's showing such a high increase there and lower, of course, in 2025 respectively. Also, a $347,000 grant from OPWC for the street improvement program in 2024 was received, and therefore that's driving that number up as well.
So if you take that out of the equation, then I mean, I'm just looking at ballpark, we are actually up in 2025 if we take out the grants for those two projects.
Yes, that's correct. In interest income, you can see that went down a little bit, about 13% from 2024, and that's just due to the interest rates being lowered by the Fed throughout the year. Moving on to page 7, talking about miscellaneous revenues in 2025 includes $75,000 for Woodland Lake development reimbursements. That's from the other local governments that are affected by that development. We received $48,000 refunds for engineering expenses, $19,000 in property tax refunds, and about $15,000 in insurance claims. That makes up the miscellaneous receipts. Talking about expenditures for the general fund, in 2025, we've got about $10,369,000, which was an increase of about 45% over 2024. I'll talk about those increases. Personal services. They increased about 7.5% over 2024, and that's due to increasing the number of jobs here in Sunbury. We did add 1 police officer position in 2025. There were some other positions added as well, not necessarily hired for in 2025, but they were added to the wage ordinance. So that is what's driving that increase. Contractual services decreased slightly in 2025 compared to 24. However, these expenditures in general have increased significantly as the city enters into various agreements with engineering and other projects. So we are seeing that increase over time, but from 2024 to 2025, it did decrease quite a bit. And I believe that that's primarily due to the cost savings that we're looking at with our engineer and things that are becoming more of a less outsourced and more in-house. So that's helping the city save some money. Other charges in 2024 included certain capital costs, and in 2025, those expenditures were reclassed to the capital fund, and that's what's driving that change on the transfer line. We had $3.3 million transferred out of the general fund in 25. Those primarily all went to capital projects fund. Just as a little aside, in 24, we did not have much of a need to transfer money into the capital improvements fund. There was a large balance in there from the prior year, so we were just living off of that and not needing to transfer any money. So that's why sometimes the transfers number is a little bit difficult to explain the differences year over year, just because it's kind of a filler number to see where we need to move money. Well, I guess let me move on a little bit. More information on the transfers and the $3.3 million is included at the bottom of page 7. So if you wanted to see where all those monies were going and for what purpose, all the information is there. And finally, on page 8, I was able to put together a couple charts to give kind of a pictorial or infograph representation of where we are getting our money and where we're spending our money. So the first chart there at the top, 2025 general fund expenditures per $1 in revenue. So this basically shows of all the general fund expenditures, what amount of those or what percentage amount is going into each service. So the bulk of the expenditures right now is showing it's going to administration at 29 cents. Police services is just behind that at 28 cents. And then streets follows at 26 cents. And then some smaller amounts, capital, facilities, and debt as well. The chart below that shows the expenditures by type, and this is the total government. The difference between these two dollar amounts or charts, I guess, top one is general fund only, bottom is all funds. This would be all funds for the city of Sunbury. The bulk of that almost $28 million is facilities. And as you can imagine, it's the wastewater treatment plant. That's where all the money is right now. But you can see that coming behind that, the next highest one is that 3.226, which is the administration, and then followed by the blue one by police, and then debt service, and finally streets. That's my financial report for 2025. Happy to answer any questions on that if anyone has any. We will have a 2025 financial statement once that's put together, but I don't expect that for another couple months. In the meantime, we've got some information here for you to look at, and I'm happy to provide anything else at any time.
Any questions on the report?
Plan's working.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yes.
Next topic, year-to-date comparison reports.
Yeah, so on page 9 through 12 is the revenue report. Of course, we have what we've budgeted and what we've received through the year. In the revenues, we didn't make any adjustments to the revenue budget, but there are adjustments on the expenses side, and I'll explain those when I get into that report. But on the revenue report, all of the money has been collected. There were just a few items, few lines that were not completely collected, but some were collected more than 100%. So there's some information there for you to look through. Starting from the top, I'll just skip down to the local government funds. It's 1, 2, 3. It's the fourth one from the top. We budgeted $115,000. We received $132,000. Majority of that's from the county, and a portion is from the state. Cigarette tax, liquor and beer tax, homestead, some of these minor ones. Interesting though, down in building permits, about halfway down the page, we came in really close to our budget. I mean, it's pretty amazing how close that was. Helping out with that was the stormwater fee revenue, the engineering fees, and some other little smaller categories that I took out of building permits and created a new line for, so that we can more easily or more accurately track what we're getting and where we're spending our money. So we had stormwater review revenue of $61,000, engineering review fees of $86,000, interest income $791,000. Down at the state grants line, I'll point this out. We did budget $1.32 million and only received $463,000. And I'll explain that. The $463,000 that we did receive was from the FEMA grant for the Walnut Street stabilization. The rest of that money that was budgeted but not received consists of $500,000 for the ODNR grant. That's the J.R. Smith funding that we're going to realize this year. So it's been in the budget, but we didn't know exactly when that was going to come to fruition. So it's been in the budget. We're going to finally get that in 26. Also, we had $300,000 budgeted for an OPWC grant, which we did not get. So that's why there's a difference there.
On that topic, Mr. Hennessy, we still have an outstanding request on J.R. Smith Park for this year, correct? And we would find that out sometime in June.
The mayor's talking about the state capital budget request. So yes, we do have an additional request in for that.
Thank you.
And speaking of other grants, I mean, we do expect to hear sometime in February on OPWC, right? That's for the street program. So
That's great. Thank you.
Moving on page 10, still in the general fund. Of miscellaneous reimbursements, we've received $200,000. We've only budgeted $25,000. So those are all listed out there in the comments. The majority of that is a $75,000 Woodland Lake development legal fees reimbursements from the other jurisdictions. Also a refund from Verdantis that we've overpaid, and some other smaller amounts there that you can look through. Oh, of note, we did receive the Galena reimbursement for the JRD of $5,000. So that's in there as well. Electric charging station revenues from that exceeded our budget. So that's always good. And it looks like it's about covering the annual cost of that to have the electronic charging station there. So that's great. So we're not having to pay any extra money for that. It's paying for itself. And then rental revenue is, oh, sorry, I skipped over other intergovernmental revenue. We've collected 150,000, which was about 45,000 more than we budgeted. We knew we were getting the 104,000 from the SRO reimbursement from Big Walnut Local Schools. So that's what the budget amount was basically. But we also received some extra monies, one reimbursement from the Martindale property cleanup and continuing education for the police. No donations and gifts were received in 25. We did have some rental revenues, but that brings up our general fund, or ends our general fund at 8.7 million collected for the year. The other funds follow. We have all the special revenue funds next. Don't really need to go into details on any of these, as we've beaten these pretty hard at every meeting we've been to. So if there's anything new, I will point that out to you, but I'm not seeing anything here. Okay, down, I'm going to skip down to Fund 301, and this is page 11 of the packet. In the cemetery fund, I'd like to talk a little bit about the Drugan Fund. We typically receive about $70,000 a year from this fund. It's a fund that's held in custody at Huntington Bank, and they release extra monies to us based on beautification expenditures that we put into the cemetery. We did not receive that money this year. I did receive a phone call from the account custodian. She explained that the money in the trust fund balance isn't large enough to remit any money to us at this point. It has to have a 5% balance within the account. It's an IRS mandate. So I'm not sure if when we received two distributions in 2024, if that put us over the amount that we should have been collecting or should have been receiving. But the bottom line is we're not going to get any money for that this year, but I do expect to get money for that in 2027. So if anyone has questions on that or how that works, feel free to shoot me an email and I'll be happy to explain. In the Parks and Rec Fund, we received a Nature Works grant reimbursement in there, and we're continuing to receive tree revenue from Price Ponds and Rolling Hills Development. And on page 12, we have the sewer fund. Total in the sewer fund, we've budgeted 15 or almost 16 million, and we received about 12 million. We didn't actually receive all of the money of $12 million. The majority of that, which is in the capital projects OWDA proceeds line of 7 million, that is money that's been not received by the city, but it's paying for Simonson on the construction of the wastewater treatment plant. So even though we aren't receiving those monies, we still have to count them as revenues since they are coming, since we are paying it out. We have to collect but show the in and the out. So that's why we see that money there. It's not increasing our bank balance, of course, but it is a revenue and an expense, if that makes sense. If not, I'm happy to explain more. We also have the FEMA and state grant line that is spent at 2.304. As you can see, the budget amount was 2.314. The ODOD requires that we have a small portion in retainer in that fund so that we can't collect all of it. We can't get all of it yet. So 10,000 has to remain until the project is over. So that is the sewer fund. Down in the bond retirement fund, we just have a transfer to account for, and then in capital projects, we are showing that state grant of 1.25 million from the Ohio to Erie Trail. But we also budgeted some amounts that weren't received. $2.1 million was budgeted for the East Granville Street Award. We didn't receive any of this money in 25, and I am not sure exactly when that's going to come through, but I had in here that we'd receive half in 25 and half in 26. So I may have to get some more information on when we're going to expect that money. But right now, it's budgeted in the 2026 budget to be received. So
The full amount in 26?
the full amount, yes, since we didn't receive the first half in 25. Actually, I take that back. I'm not sure if I have the full amount or if I have half in 26 and half in 27. That might be what I did. I'll have to look and confirm. Yes. And pass-through income, not much to mention there. We collect money from the developers and we pay the engineers. You can see the amounts there that we've paid. And then finally, court fines. We've collected about 79,000 in court fines for mayor's court.
The pass-through income, remind me of what we changed though this year. Didn't we commit to looking at some additional fee revenue types, perhaps related to zoning permits or something we
Yeah,
can do internally as we build out our staff?
Yeah, so the pass-through income, I think, and Carly, you may want to help us a little bit with this one, because the pass-through income, I think, is not what we look to as the source for paying the engineer technician or the permit specialist. Those are other sets of fees elsewhere in the budget.
Yes, so for the pass-through fees, we're looking to collect money from the consulting services for review of these private, commercial, or residential developments. That also is a pass-through fee for the construction inspection of the public infrastructure that is built as part of the private improvement as well. So essentially, anything that's being done for the new neighborhoods in the community, the commercial developments, we are trying to have a consulting company do the full review and inspection in order to alleviate some of the staff time. There is one other aspect to the inspections for our MS4. So our it's our local city stormwater requirements to make sure that we are inspecting weekly on these construction projects. There is that aspect as well, but the pass-through fees are not part of that. The stormwater fund, where we are collecting money, that would be the revenue source that we can pay for that contract with Delaware County Soil and Water. Have I confused?
Yeah, and maybe the other thing now I'm thinking about this a little bit more. So some of the inspection services provided by the engineering technician are the types of expenses that we would have already built into our engineering service or engineering contract services line item or had built in, where typically we have used that line item to pay for somebody to do inspections on city projects. But now what we're saying is with some of the city projects, we may have somebody in-house with the technical skills to be able to do that. So we wouldn't pay that as we wouldn't pay a contractor to do that. We would just be paying a staff person to do that.
Yeah, and that's not considered a pass-through fee that we're talking about. The pass-through fees are deposited funds by the developer, and then any money that isn't spent is returned back. There is a fee item for engineering review that is not part of pass-through that we collect, and that money can be utilized for my internal review or for the engineering technician's time in helping to manage this in the future.
Can I ask a clarifying question? Sorry to backtrack a minute. So the pass-through fund is really kind of a quote unquote checking or savings account for the builder to give to us, then we use that money then on their behalf for these services to move the project forward. Is that a good summary?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep, so when we look at, the code actually defines exactly how much they have to pay in deposit. And for the inspection side of it, it's a percentage of the estimated overall construction budget. Sometimes we go back and forth depending upon how much inspection might be needed, but essentially we have Verdantis helping us with this pass-through engineering inspection portion. And then as the deposit gets lower, if it gets to a point where we might need additional money deposited, we can reach back out to the developer to increase those funds. But it is fully funded by the growth instead of us paying services outside of that. So if we have meetings with Verdantis internally related to those projects, that is also being included in the deposit funds.
And does the builder have to approve those expenses or give any type of head nod to say yes? So, just because if I'm a builder, I want to know those funds are being used appropriately. So I just.
Oh, yes. And they definitely reach out because they want to see, what funds are being utilized. We get daily inspection reports so we can verify when the contractor was out on the site. So the big question is, are they spending a full day out there or are they just stopping by? And all of that is tracked and can be supplied to the developer in order to explain how much of the deposit has been utilized. Oftentimes, the deposit is a significant amount higher, which is a good thing. But occasionally it has gone over.
Mhm.
It just depends.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great.
Shall we move on to expenses? Okay. Page 13 starts our expense report. Now, this is going to look a little bit different from the report you're used to seeing every month, only because I've included a revised appropriation column. It's highlighted in yellow. It's between the original appropriation and the year-to-date expense. So the original appropriation is what we budgeted at the beginning of 2025. The revised is any change that we had to make throughout the year. So where I've highlighted in yellow, those were the revisions to the appropriations that went up. And I wanted to show when those variances were more than 10%, I wanted to explain what that was. So starting at the top of page 13, in the police department, we just have two lines that went over the original budget by more than 10%. That's the towing expenses and the cruiser repair. Both of those are pretty low dollar amounts, so not much of an impact. But the towing expenses were were a little higher than we originally budgeted, and of course, cruiser repair. It's very difficult to estimate that at the beginning of the year, and unfortunately, we did go over and had to adjust for that. Still in the general fund, down to the middle section there in the admin department, that big yellow box you're used to seeing, this contractual services line. Of course, we started at $789,000 and we bumped it up more than doubled. Well, is that right? Almost double. Or just about. So you can see all of the expenses listed there in the comment as well. So I won't go through all of those. I know I've gone through them in the past, but it's all there for you to see.
So if I could, just to pull this out. So East Side Utilities, 345,000. Again, one of the things that Dana is doing is tracking these individual project expenses, because again, this is the type of thing that ultimately gets refunded or reimbursed through some other financing means as we build out the industrial park on the east side. So that's an example of one of those. And in fact, I think that's the biggest single project on
Yes.
the list. So
Yes, that is.
Yep.
Okay. Page 13, I think we can move on. Page 14, there's nothing highlighted there in the revised that needs to be discussed. These are all the rest of the general fund accounts. Moving on to page 15. The top there is the bottom is the top is the end of the general fund. It's the transfer amount. So we didn't revise the appropriation, but we did have to increase the actual expense due to some transfers that had to go out. And it was primarily driven by the $1.25 million Ohio to Erie Trail. I didn't realize that that needed to be transferred at the beginning of the year. So that's why there was a difference in the original and the actual. After the general fund, we have all the special projects fund and Fund 201. Contractual services for street, that was significantly increased, and that's all due to the Safe Streets for All program that we expended, but then collected $120,000 from federal grant. Moving on page 16, I'll point out in the cemetery fund at the top, we had to increase that appropriation by $10,000 for an early payoff of the cemetery bonds. In the Parks and Rec, we had to increase that appropriation. Sorry, and it's escaping me as to why we had to do that right now, so I'm sorry. I will have to get back with you on why that one had increased. In the sewer fund, contractual services, we started at 529 for the appropriation, and we had to bump that up to 1.429. Primarily due to the major projects that we have going on in the sewer plant. We have the Little Walnut Creek Interceptor, various phases of that, and just lots of other projects going on. So throughout the year, identifying more projects to complete, needing to increase the appropriation. The chemicals line is also highlighted there. We did go over a bit on our chemical expense. So if you have questions on that, talk to Dale. Sorry, I'm not, he has a good explanation as to why it was over. And I can't remember what it was. And that is everything that I had to point out to you when it comes to the revised appropriations and differences in our expenditures for the year. Happy to answer any questions.
Any questions on the comparison reports? All right, thanks, Ms. Evan. I think we're wrapping up here soon. It looks like we're back to the bank to book reconciliations and the check register.
Yes. So on the front page, we've got the income tax categories. As you always see every month, I include the categories and where we're trending. So that's informational for you. And then the bank balances, we have a total bank balance at the end of the year of $22,328,882.49. Outstanding checks of about 24,000, variances of about 50,000, which have all been identified. And as far as the checks go,
So we'll continue the tradition with the new council member, read all the check numbers and transactions, as long as the dates, and we'll sit here and make sure it's accurate.
stop talking for a little bit.
We'll do it next meeting too.
Yeah, all the checks are there. So if there's any questions, happy to explain. I'll just glance through here real quick and see if there's anything major that I need to point out. Of course, Simonson Construction is the contractor that's working on the wastewater treatment plant. So you'll see some large payments to them for that. We did pay the Santander Bank. That's $75,000. It's on page 21. That's the annual lease payment for the police cruisers. The Ryder Company, we paid them $78,000. I know they're doing some work for us on something. Decker Construction, we paid $790. That's on page 22. Decker is working on parking lot. And more for Simonson on page 23, lots for Simonson Construction. So yeah, happy to answer any questions on the payments there. Of course, I always try to have full transparency so you can see every single payment that's going out. So everything is there for you to see, ask questions if you have questions. Happy to provide answers.
Yeah, what's American Structure Point?
They are a contractor. They're working on 37
Okay.
widening.
On that, remind me, the OPWC request we put in, was that for East Granville Street? What was it?
No, that's this,
That's right.
here.
Okay, thanks.
Mountable corner.
Mountable. And Kevlar pedestrian crossings.
Yes.
Oh, can I point out one other thing? On page 18, the year-to-date fund report, the unexpended balance. I don't know if you recall, but last meeting I talked about how the actual balance is around 20 million when we were showing it a lot less on my one report. You can see the unexpended balance here at the end of the year, 22,253,000. So I was right. Sure. That's all I have.
Okay. Well, thank you very much.
Can I ask a question I probably should have asked maybe 5 or 8 years ago? Do we have a way to, do you have a tool or a way within the RETA system to identify the income tax that is generated from residents versus folks who just work here versus both scenarios, where they live and work?
I know that is possible. I know I've gotten information like that in the past, but I did have to work directly with a RETA representative to get that information. It wasn't something that I was able to pull on my own, but I know that it is possible. So I can work on that.
Maybe we
If
can
you
just
want.
look, and I know this is tax time and it's very busy for them and everyone right now, so I'm not asking for it urgently or anything, but I think maybe mid-year, if we can target, we have a good grasp on where income tax revenues are coming from, especially as we're looking to reduce property taxes over time. It's just a good idea that we've got a really good handle on that.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
I think that takes us to the end of our agenda, if I'm not mistaken. So anything else before we call the meeting?
One thing I wanted to mention, March 25th, we walked in State of the City. And really excited to have a lot of great accomplishments to cover again. March 25th, high school auditorium. What day of the week is that? I believe it's a Wednesday.
Yeah, the Wednesday is it?
Yep. We'll talk more about it in the future, but just figured I would take a moment.
All right. Thank you, Mayor. I think we're looking for a motion to close this thing.
Motion to adjourn.
Yes, is that right? All right, we have a motion and a second.
Mayor St. John?
Yes.
Mr. Capel?
Yes.
Mr. Grumney?
Yes.
Mrs. Cooper? Yes. Mr. Ghost?
Yes.
Mrs. Crawford? Yes.